Good afternoon. Hi, it's Kitty Fitton and this is Ordinary Life on Coast Access Radio 104.7 FM across Kapiti and Horowhenua in New Zealand. And today I'm going to revisit a previous guest because, Bob, I think it's nice to kind of hook in with people again and kind of catch up and see how they're doing. And also I've had some really good feedback from lots of people about how much they enjoyed listening to them and their story. And don't forget, you can always catch up on all of the stories at Coast Access Radio on their website or at kittyfitton.com or anywhere where you find your podcasts. And without any further ado, this week I'm going to be talking again to the lovely Michael Doyle. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Kitty. Nice to be back.
And some of you may remember that Mike actually suffered a cardiac arrest, didn't you?
Yes, 18th of October 2020. I went from being perfectly healthy to perfectly not quite so healthy.
Yeah. And because, full disclosure, Mike and I had just started seeing each other at that point, it was a great introduction to meet all his family, or not, because it's not actually the best place to meet your family in the ICU unit of a hospital, eh?
Yeah, I think a barbecue would have been better.
It definitely would, Mike. Absolutely. But we thought it would be good to come in and talk about the fact that before we really knew each other very well, Mike knew nothing about Parkinson's, and why would he? And I knew absolutely nothing about cardiac arrests. And I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about how it's changed our relationship and how we kind of deal with things. And
yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, prior to my cardiac arrest, I mean, I'd known you for a number of years,
yeah.
And I know that you had Parkinson's, and obviously the obvious thoughts spring to mind, Michael J. Fox, and it's a degenerative disease, and people shake and movement becomes more and more difficult to control. But other than that, it was like, I really have no idea what it feels like, or the things that bring you joy, and most importantly, the things that fundamentally scare you.
Wow, scare me. Yeah, that's true. And I think a lot of people are like that, though, because people are surprised when they find out that, I don't know, people are like, oh, you're so happy and positive
and strong and just invincible.
Absolutely. And then when I admit that actually it's terrifyingly scary and frightening and do things like read blog posts on the radio.
And sometimes you just want to sit in the corner, sit in the chair in the corner of the room and cry. But you can't do that because it's not very good for you. You just need to keep moving.
To dust yourself. Well, it's not that simple. But yeah, I have had to learn how to pick myself up and carry on. I was thinking about it on the drive in and how the day they told me, it was one of those, I actually sat there and thought, wow, this is one of those pivotal moments of my life. The doctor says those words and the whole room kind of shimmers a little bit, and you kind of sit there trying to take it in and think, hang on, I'm sure he's just said something extremely bad and life-changing, but I don't quite understand what that is. And you have also now gone through that.
Yeah. It's interesting being on the other side. It's quite a learning curve, and I certainly think having to deal with my own challenges has really helped me understand your challenges. Now, I would not recommend that the partners of other Parkinson's sufferers go and have a cardiac arrest.
No.
Definitely
this
is certainly not something I would suggest.
But could you tell us a little bit about pre-cardiac arrest Mike?
So pre-cardiac arrest Mike, I was one of those overachieving middle class male types. I would people say, "Oh, well, you're working too hard." It's like, well, I'm only doing 12 to 15 hours a day. It's not that great, and
You were working too hard.
my job's super important to me, and nothing's more important. And
Mike,
if there's a mountain that needs to be moved, I can move it. I'm the guy.
First thing you said to me when we got back together was you kind of went, "Oh, Kitty, my work is very important to me." You said, "Stop telling me I'm working too hard because I'm just doing what I need to do."
But nothing could stop me. I was invincible. Didn't matter how high the mountain was, I could climb it. How deep, how wide the ocean was, I could swim it. I was that guy. I was the go-to guy.
And you liked it, didn't you?
Oh, it was very intoxicating. Looking back on it, I realised that was part of the attraction. I liked being, the guy that in a huge IT company, when things went pear-shaped, they would come to me and ask my advice. It's very exhilarating.
And you also said if anybody had told you that you had to slow down because you were, accident waiting to happen, you'd have just laughed at them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I can conquer anything. Not so much now.
So, when you found out what had happened to you, because we know what happened, we know what happened to you. You can refer back to the previous episode. And when you did wake up in hospital, what were your initial thoughts?
First this is kind of serious, kind of weird, but a couple of weeks, I'll be back at work. I'll be back to being Super Mike again. This isn't going to stop me. Nothing had. So
I do remember you telling me, you said you came out of hospital and you said, "I'll be back at work in 2 weeks." And I said, "I don't think you will." And you were like, no, I'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry about me. I'll be great.
Yeah. 2 months later, I was still trying to work out essentially how alive I was. How much of me had got through this, what I could do. Because it was a huge shock and something 2.5 years later, I'm still struggling with, because I recently had a cardiac ablation, basic heart surgery, not open heart surgery, it's microsurgery on my heart, and as a result of that, I'm having to learn again what my limits are, and I now know what the impact is of breaking those limits, because I got stuck in atrial fibrillation for 7 months. So it's like, where is the limit? I want to know where it is, but I have to push very carefully.
See,
it's
I
quite
think
scary.
that you should listen to your partner more, because she's really sensible and she's very good at telling you when you need to slow down, hey?
You mean like every 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Right.
But in all seriousness, you've struggled a bit with the transition from the corporate world, shall we say, to being a stay-at-home retired person with a disability.
Yes, I did have. It has been a interesting transition. One moment I can clearly recall is the HR manager. We're having a conversation, and fortunately, part of my package, etc., is we had income protection insurance, and so I now get receive payments monthly from private insurer. And she basically said, "Oh, I actually quite envy your position."
Wow.
And I was like, only someone who. So I was polite and kind of I didn't respond. But it's like only someone who's not in my position could possibly say that, because I think all of us, to a degree, who we are in our professional career is a large part of our self-identity. I'm a teacher, I'm a school principal, I'm a doctor, I'm a IT project manager, I'm a whatever, Minister of Finance. That's kind of who you identify as being. And that, for me, had just been ripped away, and confirmation that not only was it gone, it was gone forever. It was never going to come back. The peak of my career was all of a sudden in the past, whereas, the day before I was still...
Yeah. So what do you think about, because we both know that lots of people have said to you things along the lines of, well, obviously you're grateful you're alive. Let's just get that out of the way straight away. And obviously you are delighted you're still here, and nobody is saying that you're not. But people do sometimes say things like, oh, you're very lucky, and because, you don't have to go to work, and I wish I was like you and retired, and that must be great. Is it great?
What's this? I guess my answer is, and it's the same thing that I see your experience is, every day when you wake up, you have no idea until you wake up, until you get out of bed, whether or not today you are going to be able to go ahead and get through some of the tasks you need to get done, or whether it's just going to be a day of hell when you're just exhausted all day and frustrated and you can't move and it's just awful.
How do your family react? Yeah.
They've been very supportive. I think there's some of the few people who get it, because all other than my brother who lives in Tasmania saw me in ICU with half the hospital plugged into me.
Yeah.
So they're aware of just how close they came to losing me and just how bad, how low I got. And therefore they're all very cautious about asking me to do things or pushing me in any way.
But I believe you live in a blended family now, and how do they take it?
Oh yeah, they Kitty has been as we covered in the previous recording, you were there at the scene.
Yeah.
You saw everything that happened. And that was the first time anyone had attended with me. So thankfully you'd been there. But you've basically been there and a huge support the entire time. You've...
But I'm talking more about when you talk about you're getting tired, and sometimes you might get a little bit grumpy.
What, me?
Perhaps.
Me? Get grumpy?
Yeah.
Yeah, never.
And how do you cope with that when you've got all these extra children that are not yours? And
there's the period of time I was in atrial fibrillation. I have been told that I was somewhat difficult to live with.
Is that true?
Because essentially I was just insanely tired. I would wake up tired.
Yeah.
But desperate to do things. So I would work, do as much as I could, but I'd always do more than I should have.
Are you saying you might have pushed yourself a little too far sometimes?
Yeah. I'm what they call an active relaxer, or it can be quite annoying for passive relaxers.
It's Catherine here. I'm jumping in, listening into the conversation, recording you two. I want to know, and Kitty, I apologise if you were going to ask this question anyway.
Right.
What would happen if you did push yourself a little bit too far, Mike?
Well, at the end of October last year, I did push myself too hard, and I started feeling a little unwell. And I basically said to Kitty late in the evening, I think I need an ambulance.
How about we tell the truth, and you'd been lying on the sofa all night, and myself and your son and my children were all going, "Are you okay?" And you were like, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I just need to rest." And then eventually you said the words, he knows he's caught out, Catherine. "I think I need an ambulance."
And they came and picked me up, and apparently my heart was in atrial flutter, which I'm not exactly sure what that was, but sounds pretty bad, because they said on the way into the hospital, they pumped me full of some medication, and they managed to get me, slow my heart down into atrial fibrillation, which is pretty seriously bad. And I was in atrial fibrillation for 7 months after that, just feeling essentially, because the top chambers of the heart were basically just flapping around, not really doing the job. I never had enough blood pumping through my body, so I was fatigued all the time. Your brain's not getting enough blood, so you kind of end up being a little bit nuts and a bit grumpy.
So not his fault, Kitty, that's what I'm saying.
No, so not my fault at all.
I'll turn my microphone down.
Absolutely
I'll let you two continue.
So yes, that's one of the things I'm now scared of, having been brought out of that with the heart surgery. That's now one of the things that I'm really worried about making sure, trying to find my limit, but not pushing beyond it.
Can I ask a question that some people regularly ask me, if you are ever going to go back to work? I mean, some people even still say, oh, is he back at work yet? And, how are things cognitively?
So I still struggle hugely. In fact, cognitive activities are insanely tiring. And it's one of the things that does my head in, sorry,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively, is a lot of people say, oh, well, why don't you do crosswords? Why don't you do Sudoku? Why don't you read these books, etc.?
Train your mind again, don't they?
But if I sit down and read, it could be a novel, it could be whatever, after about 45 minutes of high cognitive effort, I am insanely tired. It's as if I've done, a 12-hour job, a 12-hour day, and I'll keep pushing. If I keep pushing, I will quite literally fall asleep, just wherever I'm sitting or standing. I'll just fall over, and my brain will shut me down, and I'll be sound asleep for an hour, hour and a half.
So given that you were, like, let's be honest, Mr. Hotshot corporate, Mr. Important, I fix everything type of thing, and now you are retired on medical grounds, and you're going out with this woman who's a bit of a wreck, health-wise. I mean, how has that changed your opinion of, me at all, and what's wrong with me and that kind of thing?
I think it's hugely helped me understand the challenges you face, and in particular, some days you just feel fine and positive, and I'm going to beat this thing, and and other days just tear your hair out. It's awful, and that's not something that you can really control yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that I have to try and push myself as hard as I can physically, whereas you have to really take it slow.
Yes.
And it used to be so different.
But I certainly think that I have a much greater understanding of not just the physical, more the psychological burden that comes with these. That's, I guess, frustration is one of the big things that we both suffer, that we just want to do things. Because like me, you're an insanely active person. You'd run off a mountain, then, go jump off a rock into a river.
And it's that strange feeling as well
But
of like worrying that perhaps your best years of your career may be behind you instead of still in front of you. And for myself, I'm not even 50 yet. I'm still in my late 40s. I know I could pass for much younger, but
absolutely.
But I still thought I had all this career and stuff in front of me, and instead I'm having to stop and go, whoa, where's my life going? Which has been really hard, but it's been really interesting watching you go through.
Yeah, I guess we've both had. Yeah, there's a lot of adventures, a lot of things we both have, both independently and jointly, want to achieve, and it's very easy to sit back and go, we'll never achieve them. But we are going to try as hard as we can to do it. That's part of what you have to do to keep going.
One thing I did want to talk about as well was some of our friends and some of their attitudes towards what's happened to us. And I know we had a friend over recently, and they were talking about what kind of assistance we could get.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking.
Yes.
And we have often said that it's quite difficult. You know, we moved in together. I have to work to make sure that we can afford to pay for. I've got 4 children. Mike's got 3, and etc. etc. We don't want to be a burden to each other financially, all that kind of stuff. But I struggle because I've got the 4 children and a job, and they said, "Oh, you could get some help." I got very excited. But what kind of help were they talking about? Can you remember?
Yes. Well,
what kind of help do you think I need, Mike, as my partner?
Okay, the kind of help you genuinely need and would be beneficial is to not have to work 40 hours a week so that you had time to exercise, because that has a huge impact on your Parkinson's. The ability to be able to provide the emotional and care for your children, that because you're at work, it's, that's a struggle.
And we're not talking much, are we? I mean, just a couple of hours a day. I'd rather work 30 hours than 40. Yeah. I've been told I can't do that. I have to work 40. There's nothing financially that I can claim because we're a couple. However, apparently I could apply for some support, but that is, for example, I was told, Mike is your carer. So
I could get respite.
Yeah.
From having to care for you.
He could get respite care. And, and maybe I could get respite for Mike. Go on.
So that could kill him for a start.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a great solution.
I couldn't quite believe it. And they said, we could help you with getting somebody in to do your cleaning, and or maybe help you. Did they even mention when you get a bit more difficult washing and things, or getting dressed?
Yes, personal care.
Personal care, and right. I was like, I'm in my late 40s. And if I get help of a different kind, I may never need that other assistance.
Yeah,
but it's
things like doing the housework, going and doing the shopping, taking care of yourself. Those sorts of activities, doing them yourself makes you able to do them yourself and makes you able to do other things as well.
It's about dignity and that kind of thing. I'm not even 50, for crying out loud. It almost felt like it was being planned that... And I haven't quite known... I mean, here I am talking on the radio about it, but I haven't quite known how to tell them how it felt, because I really care about this person and I really like them, but I was horrified, to be quite honest, and it
was very much ambulance at the bottom of the cliff type approach. That's what it felt like, as opposed to, if you were able to work fewer hours and go to the gym, etc. That's more offence at the top type approach, and that's really what I see you need.
Yeah. But the same kind of stuff for you there as well, and we're talking about being each other's carers and things, and I thought, wow, we're a couple, and this is...
Where's the Zimmer frame?
It's like you've got me packed up and already off.
I'm looking at the both of you, and you're very vibrant, happy, capable people, and you don't realise that you do have something going on in your life until you start talking about it.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why you're doing this show as well.
Yeah, it's really fascinating talking to people, and you say, I do a radio show about people who have chronic illness or disabilities or something, issues that are like lifelong conditions, call it what you will. And the amount of people who go, oh, I have... insert thing here, or my friend has, and it's just fascinating and quite scary. Yeah. And we were talking about, what was the thing about the ableist?
Yes,
the world is not set up for people with issues, and it's not set up for people who sometimes have quite serious conditions. I mean, even at work recently, There was someone, and I can't say too much about it, but somebody who's gravely ill needed some assistance in completing some information on a formal document. And the company in charge has refused to allow that person any help because, well, they don't need it. And it's like, but
there is an online form.
So they were playing God.
And
I can say that, you can't.
Yeah. And I got very cross, and I actually said to one of my colleagues, well, I hope that one day they're lying, ill and need some help and nobody helps, because that's just such a terrible attitude. Don't they realize? I mean, Mike couldn't read for a week, when you came out of your coma.
Yeah. So I came out of my coma, and when I first, one of my first memories was, I was in a conversation with Kitty, etc. I was just, that's one of the first things I remember. And then went to sleep, and I woke up, and the doctors brought me these authorisations to sign. And they left them with me, and I picked them up and kind of stared at them. And they came back an hour later and said, right, have you read it all? And, and signed it. I couldn't read a word.
Right.
I had no idea what it said. I just had to trust that I needed, that operation or that whatever procedure, and hopefully that it wouldn't kill me or do any damage, and just sign it. But there was no way of, it was just, we assume you can read this, but in other areas, it's, we can. Well, the service is available online. We've moved all online. It's like, well, how does that work for the 80-year-olds? How does that work for those who struggle with computers? How does that...
Yeah,
there's kind of this unconscious bias sits within a lot of organisations. And it's not malice, it's not whatever, it's just...
How it is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, despite all of it, we kind of manage, carry on and forge forward. All right, what words of advice would you give somebody about life-changing situations? I mean, is it all over? Is it terrible? Is it all bleak?
No, it's not. And it's largely what you choose to make it. If you look at Kitty, for example, you're given a very difficult diagnosis, and your approach has been, I'm going to attack this with all my might. Well,
we're going to attack it together.
Yes.
We are.
Yep. And we're able to support each other because we both have a good understanding of what it's like to have had that kind of event happen.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Doyle, I find you quite interesting and fun to be around, and
sometimes annoying.
And sometimes very annoying. But on the whole, it's a positive future for the both of us, I hope. Thank you to Mike Doyle for coming in and talking to me again, although I did make you. And this has been Kitty Fitton on Ordinary Life on Coast Access Radio 104.7 FM and on kittyfitton.com. Thank you. And thank you very much for listening. Ka kite anō.
This program was made with assistance from New Zealand On Air for radio broadcast and through the accessmedia.org.nz website. Thank you, New Zealand On Air.